So we're talking about these sort of three different sets of roles. There's the active data governance roles, and we're going to start with the data steward. So you might have multiple kind of names for data stewards, or multiple levels of data stewardship, or you might call them something different: a data moderator, or administrator, or a coach, or coordinator, and that's fine. But mainly we're thinking about people here who are serving as a offering business rule expertise, over the different functional areas for review and clarification within that domain, or guidance on what to do, or technical data expertise around the data system as well. And again, that can be one person, right? Or it can be two people, or it can be multiple people kind of split up for each area or each system. Another level of this is maybe you also have policy attributes, policy expertise for someone who's setting security rule classifications or privacy codes or data retention policies and things like that. And that may be a third person, or it may again be tied to a single steward who does all of these things. But it's important to kind of play to that expertise for that person. So once you've kind of defined, this is what I call the scope of expertise, right? Are they functionally knowledgeable, technically knowledgeable, or policy knowledgeable in the area you're asking them to govern? Be that in human resources or finance or whatever. Right? The next thing is about activity and content scope, right? So is this person, the same person, going to be one who manages a report request or a data quality issue or a reference data issue, right? So you may choose to decide to split out stewardship activity for different type of these content, right? The sort of actions that we discussed are similar, but the content may change. So now you've got two different scopes. You've got the functional and technical, or possibly policy, and then the content scope. What we do with governance, often with stewardship, we recommend is you create some sort of matrix, right? A simple one just might be functional, technical, and the sort of area that it's in. Or more complicated might be where you've got like the type of content and the area and the systems, and it's a much more complicated breakdown. But the point here is that in any one of these, if we go back to that sort of activity where someone is requesting a new or a change or an issue or something, that's going to come through from this requester, and based on the functional area or the data system or the content type, you sort of evaluate it based on your matrix, and that's going to go to the stewards to review or edit or supplement or create that content. After that, it may go to someone to build, right, or take action on, and then ends up going back to the consumer. So that's sort of how the roles play. So our data governance consulting crew, who does a lot of the implementations of our cookbook and other services, had this feeling, this is not a very scientific chart here, that in your development of your data governance process and your the energy that you spend in training and cultivating the roles, that 80% of the value comes out of having high quality stewards, right, who know what they're supposed to do. So it's a really important role to make sure that you get right, and you've got people who are comfortable in that position and know what they need. Okay, so that's talking about the data steward. Now, as I mentioned, there's this sort of additional set of collaborators. So if in the process of routing to that steward, they want to pull somebody else in, or it makes sense to pull someone else in, you can think of these other subject matter experts as contributors to the review process or the editing process of any of these things that need to be done. So that's the data system, technical resources, business unit resources, or other sort of policy experts. Another active data governance role participant is in the data governance oversight and management, right? So this is people who, as I mentioned, are setting up your data governance group, or training your stewards, who are providing oversight and reviewing the steps of everything, and also championing the concept of it. So maintaining momentum, making sure that people understand the goals and why they're trying to do governance and the value of it, and that takes a fair amount of leadership skills and efforts to kind of with any kind of initiative, be it data governance or some sort of human resource culture training initiative or whatever. You need someone who is going to maintain the enthusiasm for it and also monitor it, right? So we talked a little bit about the stewardship responsibilities. When you look at the the manager responsibilities, oversight and leadership, helping develop processes and vision for the whole thing, managing the queues of requests that are coming through or changes, training and support for the stewards and also possibly the users, which we'll talk about in a minute, creating the buy-in, monitoring success, and being the champion. Now you can have stewards that are champions too. I think that's good. Another sort of role that's not mentioned here is the sponsor, right? So that might be, if you are an organization where executive sponsorship is really important, understanding like who's got your back for the costs and efforts of data stewardship and the high level support. Right. The last sort of active data governance role, we talked about the stewards, we talked about the additional collaborators, and we talked about the oversight. The third is the sort of report writers and analysts and data modelers. So these people who are sort of creating reports or creating new data. So as we saw in that picture, they may be doing this on their own, but they oftentimes will sort of interact with the stewards to make sure that they have the information is approved and documented and well understood. And if they need to get additional definitions or things, or if they need to interact with the stewards, they can. But then that deliverable comes, and that sort of goes back to whoever the requester is or whatever the use is for that, but also can inform back the knowledge base. So it's an important role, and they have a pretty active role in both reviewing and pulling from the content in your data governance module to make sure they're doing things correctly, as well as contributing content, the new data definitions or new catalog information or new report specification or whatever they may be back into that module. Also, if you're doing a good data request process, they've got an important role in interacting with the requester and the stewards around the specifications, that it's going to be accurate and feasible and matches the requirements. The next thing, and this is where we get a little bit cross between what I'm calling your active data governance users and what I'm going to be calling the customer, is your self-service reporting users. So sometimes they're active in data governance, and since they're like, we want everyone to be able to consume the content, to be able to look up how to do things from a self-service standpoint and have access to this documentation in the knowledge base. But they may also contribute to it, right? So if I built a new report, I might be, going back and adding information for what I did, depending on how much. So I might sort of a self-service reporter might become a contributor, right? But they might also, they're oftentimes serving as a customer too. They're looking to search for what's already there, finding information out what to do, and then going and doing it on